Now, the rest of the story.
So, it just so happens that the day that everybody needed feed was the day that we had all that snow on Thursday. So, why didn't I go through and do it the day before? Well, it got cold out, and even though the cows had plenty of feed the day before, they really burned through it there in like the 12, 16 hours before I got out to feed them again. So the thing is, the storm started Thursday morning, and we had a little bit of a slowdown where it quit snowing, and it was enough where I'm like, all right, I'm going to run out and get all the cattle fed before, it gets too late. Yeah, well, then the storm picked back up again, and by the time I get to the last clip here, which is me feeding all the cattle on all 3 farms here, it's snowing again, which is no big deal. I mean, we got tracks out at Ryan's place, we got concrete and the deer steer up at Rockville, and then down here I got the Bobcat with chains on it. So unlike, when I was growing up, we did have the skid steers. At one point, we had a 7400 with a loader on the front and back. I generally used that in the winter when we had that. But we had a couple years once my grandpa had passed when the loader tractor was gone, where I used the 76 and the 3-point bale mover. So over the years, we've fed these cattle in, many different ways, but ultimately, bales get fed, right? And with the amount of cows that we got around and are starting to get around, it's not so much that the process of getting them fed is going to change. You got to fire something up in the winter to get feed out to them, but the amount of bales we're feeding out is really starting to increase. I have 3 feeders down at my place. I got 3 feeders for my cows at the home farm, and Ryan's got he's got the 2 different groups. So he's got the 2 hay feeders and then a fodder bale he likes to put out, which I don't think I show it in every clip here, but I do put hay and fodder out for everybody. So one thing we haven't really had to deal with so much this winter, I mean, we've had a lot of weather like this, but I can tell you right now that I'm filming this voiceover and it's 40 degrees out, and the only snow that we really have are the areas where it's in the snowbanks or where the sun can't really get to it. And by saying that, our bales that are stored outside really don't have a whole lot of snow buildup on them. What you just saw me do there was take the tines and just knock off the little bit of frozen snow. It really wasn't even ice, because if it was ice, like ice, even the tines really wouldn't have done much to it. But going through and just running the tine up that snow, that was that really packed stuff, it does help break it up enough where as I'm pulling the net wrap through it, it'll be able to pull it off and not really fighting the frozen chunks of glaciers on these bales that are stored outside as much as I've had to in the past. Weather is an interesting topic right now because February, even January, have been fairly mild for our region. It's southwest Wisconsin. I mean, I've gone through plenty of winters where we were getting so much snow every couple days that it took the tractor and the loader at the time, and I plowed as much as I could back with even like the tractor and the blade, or even when I no longer had the tractor and loader, where I actually had to take a full day to actually go through and push everything back even farther than what I had it. Because, on those days where the snow is that bad, wife's got to get to work, so you just try to plow it quick so she can leave. And we really haven't had to do that too much here lately. I had to once last year. So if you're wondering what I'm doing right there, I'm pushing with the remnants of that bale from the bale feeder up onto the bed pack. We're still feeding those wrapped oatlage bales, which is essentially standing oats that got overripe, and I cut this off. I got stuck. So, which is a really risky thing to do when you're home alone and help is a couple states away, which I got people I could call if I really got in a bind, but I got out, no worries. This wrapped This isn't wrapped oatledge. This is out at Ryan's place. Oh, JCB too. But the oatledge bales, the cows go through. I think largely it smells sweet. They do eat like the stems and everything, but because it got ripe enough where it actually had grain on it, I think a lot of it is the cows are just wanting the grain, and then they do tend to waste a little bit of it, either pulling it out and chewing it, because with bale feeders, that is one thing that cattle guys really do struggle with, it seems, is if your bales are too big, cows will waste a lot of it when you first dump a bale in, because they don't have anywhere to really pull their head back, so they pull it outside of the ring. Then anything that they don't have in their mouth falls onto the ground and you waste it. So that's that in a nutshell. And with those bales, they get all the oats off of it that they want, but then if you have more or less just the stringly straw, they won't eat it. And what I was doing there too is I got stuck. I realized it was soft already up in that bed pack at that point in time. So that's why I shoved that up there, because I had just enough ability to get another bale up there, but I really wanted to put 2 fodder bales in typically. So I'm just trying to make sure everybody stays dry. And we're doing all right on bedding, on corn fodder bales. It's just March, what I have just been kind of told here in the last day or two is that they're calling for March to be a colder month compared to January and February, which if it's colder out, it's good for me because I got, hay that I'm selling. Colder weather means cattle are burning through hay more, so guys are feeding more. So cold weather at this point really doesn't bother me. If we had another 3, maybe 4 weeks of 20-degree weather, weather in the teens, it really wouldn't be the end of the world. Somebody got out. See, here's another issue too. When you're feeding by yourself, you're trying to save time by having to get in and out multiple times to open and shut the gate when you're pulling into these lots. And also notice the snow is really starting to pick up again. When it's this time of year where there's nothing else for the cows to really eat, they go back in pretty well by themselves. I didn't have to chase them really at all. They realize that the bales their feed is actually in the feeder, and they know where they need to be. They're not dummies. So the big thing is when you're by yourself and it's January, or heck, actually it's probably worse in May or late April, right? Really before you let the cows out to pasture, and they get out on you and they get that first real good taste of fresh grass for the year. Good, absolutely stinking luck trying to get those cows back in if you're by yourself. Most of all, you guarantee you're going to need a 4-wheeler. But luckily enough, our cows they're tame enough, quiet enough. I'll say quiet enough that they really aren't terrible to work with when they do get out. We've called out the crazy wild ones. If you guys remember that, was it Dum Dum that I had at Rockville, where she would literally run and pace the fence just from me walking in and checking the water or whatever. I don't have any time for cattle like that. I can't really afford to have cattle around like that with the amount of young kids we have around right now. So each machine we have on each farm is kind of farm specific, because at Ryan's place at the moment, if it wasn't for the JCB and the tracks being able to kind of float through some of this muck, this mud, I don't think we'd be feeding out there unless it was a tractor, because I almost guarantee, I promise you that the deer wouldn't be able to do it. The bobcat with the chains, honestly, maybe the bobcat with the chains would have a better chance than the deer. I say that because the deer works great at Rockville on concrete, and where you have a little bit of a gravel base, and we tried putting the chains on it that first year, and we were actually breaking the chains because the machine was just so heavy. It was actually tearing them up. And let's see, one of my new heifers is coming up. I ran out of video here. I was running off of one GoPro, one battery, and ultimately my battery just got too cold and it just burned down. But I thought it was kind of an interesting video for you guys. I mean, this is how we feed on 3 different farms in the winter, and having more cattle around is great. I'm all for it, to be honest with you, because having a bunch of feeders to really sell every year works better for me. I got the bulls on a set rotation anymore. I don't just put them in and leave them, especially for my cattle. I actually got it written right on the calendar, December 1st. You put them in, February 1st you pull them out, and then I put the bull back in on June 1st till August 1st. And really just looking for more, my friend calls it bull power. And really that is putting more bulls in what you may quote unquote really need for the amount of cows you have. But we've experienced that here, and it'll be 3 years ago now, where my brother, that was close. He got really close to, Ryan actually had a bunch of his cows not get bred one year, and it turned out that the bull was shooting blanks. So kind of an issue where when you're starting to get to where you're relying on having your cow herd get bred back every year and having calves to sell every year, it's actually pretty risky putting all your chips down and hoping that one bull is going to be able to do everything on his own. Myself, for all of us, I share a bull with my parents, and I'm looking at this year. I have the intentions of we're going to keep Rocky for at least one more year, and I got the 2 bulls out of him that I kept from last year. They both look like they're red bulls, but it's fine. They both look really nice, so I mean they're coming up good in condition. We can dump Rocky, those 2 bulls, and I want to actually look at going and buying another red bull, so 4 total, and I'll be able to put those guys in with my parents' cattle with no issues whatsoever, because Mom and Dad didn't keep any heifers back out of Rocky, or so there's no genetics there that those cows I got to worry about. On my herd, I got a bunch of cows that Rocky's, the first calf I have out of Rocky is actually Reba. She's down at my place, so I won't have to worry about that until January of next year. So I got plenty of time to figure out what I'm going to do there. But the short-term plan is Rocky, and actually, the 2 calves I'm keeping out of him, we'll be switching them out and getting some more variable genetics on the farm, pushing more red cattle, breeding my parents' cattle, which are black, to a red Angus. Red is a recessive, so it's not like my parents can have a bunch of red calves dropping out of their cow herd. So I know a lot of it is preference, but I don't really feel like red Angus is a super bad cattle type breed to have around. Red Angus, black Angus, I don't really think you're hurting yourself there too much. I mean, I've watched enough cow sales here in the last couple months. There's definitely a difference, but if you go in quantity and quality, you're still making good money. It's when you see cattle like Herefords or like a bunch of off-brand looking cows or mismatched crosses, that's when you start kind of losing some cash there when you're running them through the ring. But that is me feeding cattle. So it's still too early to call it spring just yet. Even though it's like 40s and 50s, but we're still in February. We get to March. As soon as it really acts like spring weather in March, I'll start fixing fence. But make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, guys. I most certainly appreciate it. So thanks.